Hey everybody, John here. Um, Today I'm here to talk about a subject that has affected me for the past 22 years of my life. It has taken 22 years to come up with this information, and it's weighed on me for the past 22 years, and I've dragged it around with me and carried the burden of it, and always felt like I could never talk to anybody or let it out because I felt it was too much of a serious topic. And at the time, I was young, I was 15 years old, and I didn't know who to go to, who to trust, who not to trust, or what might happen to me otherwise. Um, with everything going on now with the MeToo movement, I see a lot of women coming forward and saying, that they've been harassed, they've been sexually harassed, they've been sexually abused, sexually assaulted. And what a lot of the media doesn't understand is that there are a lot of men out there too who have been sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, and so on. And in the new light of the George Hopkins investigation, I felt like it was finally time for me to come forward with my story. Those brave women who came forward and broke down that wall and broke down that barrier, they opened up the door to what has happened, and let into the activity, into the light of what has been going on for many, many years, years before I started, and up until this day, is still going on. I'm not here to tell anybody else's story but my own, and my own is something that has been extremely hard. I've been in therapy for 7 years now. I've spoken a lot about this with my therapist, and yeah, it's gotten to the point where I grew up in Massachusetts. I used to go to guard shows in Massachusetts, and I haven't been to a guard show in Massachusetts since 2000, because I didn't want to run into either of the two sexual predators that abused me when I was a child. 15 years old, 14 years old, 16 years old is a child in the state of Massachusetts. So I decided to reach out to the Nesba board, the New England Scholastic Band Association, and let them know of the abuse that happened to me when I was a child, and to try to see if we could get these two individuals off the judging panel, off the teaching panel, away from children, because they do not belong near children. No matter what they say, they're still going to do what they're going to do. You can't fix somebody who is sick and twisted in the head, and that would use their abusive power to sexually abuse a child, and so on. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to read you the letter that I wrote to Nesba. I'm going to read you their attorney's response. I'm going to read you the response that they sent to the district attorney, which totally contradicts the response that they sent me. And I'm going to read you the two emails I've sent to their attorney since, which I have not heard one word back from. So here it goes. This isn't going to be easy for me. It's very terrifying, actually. But I feel like there's other children out there right now that are growing up in this activity, and these things are happening to. And when you're underprivileged and you start getting, molded by a staff member to become, one of their little pets, I should say, it's scary. I'll say that. It's scary because, looking back on it now, I remember how afraid I used to be. And the things that have happened to me in the 5 years I was with the program I was with, and a lot of people that I've marched with since then, along with some staff members, WGI judges, color guard members of that guard, staff members of that guard. They all have told me that, that they support me and that they're behind me 100%. And so that's why I'm doing this, and I will try not to ramble on a lot. And here I go. To the board and directors of Nesba, my name is John Gramazio, and I've been part of the Eastern Mass Circuit since 1993 at the age of 12, and the Eastern Massachusetts Winterguard Association since 1996 at the age of 15. I had a wonderful opportunity of marching Avalar's Winterguard from 1996 to 2000. Spartans Drum and Bugle Corps, 1995 and 1997. East Coast Jazz Drum Corps, 96. Boston Crusaders Drum Corps, 1999. The Alliance in Miami World Winter Guard in 2002. Fahrenheit Independent World, 2009 and 2011. And I have taught dozens of color guards over the years. Taught dozens of programs, even wrote a lot of the book for a rifle line in Fahrenheit when I marched in Fahrenheit, and great experience with that. At the start of my guard career, my home life was extremely abusive, verbally, emotionally, and physically. I was made to feel that I was worthless at the hands of my parents and a mentally ill sister on a regular basis. I was finally allowed to join Winterguard in 1996. My 4 older sisters marched Winterguard prior to me, from prior to me being born all the way up until 1995. The year my last sister quit is the year my parents finally let me join because they knew I wanted to do it, and I knew that it was something that could get me out of my house, away from the abuse, away from everything that was going on at home, and go to a fun place and have it be my safe place. And one of my guard instructors that taught me in that program said, I'm sorry we didn't keep you safe. And to those staff members that have said things like that to me, don't apologize. It is not your job to apologize for what any other staff member did to me. It is only your job to do exactly what you did, because the people apologizing are not the people that hurt me, are not the people that abused me. The people that are apologizing are not the ones that need to apologize. And every time I hear one of them say, I'm so sorry, I wish I could have done more to protect you. No, the apology isn't on you. You have done nothing wrong, and if anything, you have given me the strength to be able to come forward with this and bring this out into the light and into the open and share this with people, because this is extremely not easy. And one of the hardest parts is hearing people that I loved and adored and cherished and looked up to say I'm sorry when they had absolutely nothing to do with this. Nothing. And I had explained to them that, I didn't open up to them and tell them. And if I didn't open up to tell them, it's not their responsibility. They don't need to apologize. It's not their fault. Color guard was a whole new world for me. I was welcomed and treated as an equal, and found quickly that I was very good at it. I was glad to be a part of a team and find a safe space away from the negative and abusive home life. I trusted the staff, but given my troubled home life, lack of self-esteem, and the fact that I was young and naive, that made me a target for these 2 gentlemen. I had no idea what was coming my way. My parents would not drive me into Boston where our rehearsals were, so I would carpool with other color guard members. I'm sorry, I'm emotional, so I'm stumbling my words right now. I would carpool into Boston from the South Shore with members that I marched with. Not everyone went home after rehearsals, especially on the weekends. So one of my instructors, I'm not going to say the names yet. I'm not going to say the names of these two gentlemen yet. They're in the letter. Nesba got the letter. The attorney got the letter. I'm not going to use their names yet. If I feel later on that it's necessary, I will. If Nesba does nothing about it and these two men are still teaching and judging, then I will use their name. And my attorney and I will do everything we can to fight this, to make sure that these two men get what is coming to them. One of the instructors would offer to drive me home. The first time he drove me home, there was blizzard conditions, and he asked me to just stay on his couch so he didn't have to drive in it. Plus, we had rehearsal the next morning. I took a shower and settled in when the instructor gave me a Diet Coke with ice. The next thing I remember, waking up in the morning on the couch, naked, without even a blanket on me. I had no idea what happened, and as I basically have insomnia, as I'm a night person, I just don't pass out very easily. It takes a long time for me to fall asleep, and I remember everything. I ended up having to stay at this instructor's house on a few more occasions, and it didn't dawn onto me that I was being drugged until one morning I woke up naked in that instructor's bed at 15 years old. He was asleep, so I got out and went to shower and was silent the whole way to rehearsal. I never asked him how I ended up in his bed because I thought it would make him angry. Me being 15 years old, I didn't want to upset him. I knew from the physical and visual signs that I was sexually assaulted. You know your own body at 15 years old, and you know when something awful has happened to you. You don't ever want to be that person. I'll spare you the more graphic details for now, but you can imagine what happened. A few months had passed, and I did my best to avoid this instructor as much as possible. Since it was now show season, I regrettably had to have him drive me home after a show on a Saturday night from Salem High School in Massachusetts. Once again, he asked me to crash on his couch as we had to be back at rehearsal the following morning. He sat on the couch, and I did not accept the Diet Coke this time. He proceeded to introduce me to gay porn for the first time at 15 years old. I was extremely uncomfortable. Now, let me say, I'm a 15-year-old boy. We know that that's the age, 13, 14, 15, when boys start getting, into things like masturbation and their bodies are changing, their hormones are changing. But that's something boys do in private. At that age, they don't expect a man in his 40s to be showing it to you and whipping his penis out, masturbating it next to you, wanting you to join it. That's unacceptable. I was extremely uncomfortable and got up and went and took a long shower. For the rest of the 1996 season, his demeanor towards me had changed. Where there was once compliments, it was now insults. The trust was gone, and I was left feeling I did something wrong. For the remainder of the season, I relied on those who I felt safe. The director of the color guard and some other guard members were now my ride to and from rehearsals, and I avoided that instructor as much as possible. The 1997 season was looking pretty promising. Our guard had more than doubled in size, and we had 7 more boys join over the summer. No sooner did this happen that 2 of those boys were actually living with a male staff member, both of those boys being underage. This staff member, again, I will not mention. Being a minor child, and despite my home life, I can't imagine my parents letting me live with another adult male staff member. That season, I started dating one of those 2 boys that lived with the staff member. During camp weekends and on show weekends, he would ask me to stay over with him at the instructor's house. To me, I felt if he's asking me to come there, he's asking me to stay there, then there's no reason to worry, because he would be there, so I wouldn't be alone. It wouldn't just be me and a staff member. There would be other people there. After getting to know one another a lot better, we eventually became intimate. I told him that I was nervous that the instructor would come into the living room and catch us, although that didn't happen. I was told later on that the instructor had cameras in his house and would masturbate while watching what was going on live. Even with all this, the tension with the old instructor was still there, and he made several attempts to get me to stay at his house, even offering to pay my DCI drum corps dues in exchange for sexual favors. This is just after I turned 16 years old. In the fall of '97, when DCI ended, my Winterguard Arvalor started up again, and I decided to let go of the videotaping issue because I couldn't fight it. I couldn't do anything about it. I hadn't seen them. I was just told about them. Now, both male instructors, the one that had drugged and raped me and the one that videotaped me, started making my life miserable. I did my best in a bad situation because the thought of leaving the guard was extra hard on me. 1998 was an amazing season across the board as far as our guard season went. We traveled to London, won a medal at WGI, and finally I was graduating high school at 17. During the summer, one of those instructors would call me up all the time asking me to go on a date with the boy that he would videotape me with. I told him no, and what they did with the cameras was disgusting and embarrassing. That instructor had threatened to have me kicked out of the guard if I told anyone. I felt I had nowhere to turn. Who was going to listen to me? I was just 17 years old. I thought for sure he would make things worse for me, but to my surprise, they made me captain of the color guard. And that instructor who videotaped me started treating me extremely nicely all of a sudden, which you can tell when somebody goes from A to Z that something's wrong, something's up. I realized he had ulterior motives to this, and that was short-lived. Once he realized I was never going to go out with that guard member again, he started to make up lies about me, lies that made no sense. He tried turning the other staff members against me, who I idolized, and telling them that I was saying horrible things about them. They did the same with the guard members, trying to ruin my reputation, lie after lie to anyone who would listen. It was horrifying and embarrassing for me, because I love the people I march with. I love the staff that taught us. Not those 2 gentlemen, but everybody else in the program, I would never take an ounce of credit away from because they were great staff members. I felt like they were trying to find any excuse to get me out, but I was a strong performer. They couldn't kick me out for that. I paid my dues. They couldn't kick me out for that. And I never missed a rehearsal, so they couldn't kick me out. So lying was all they had when they could manipulate me. They eventually succeeding in manipulating the director and making me out to be a villain. The director called me the evening before we were to leave for the Pennsylvania Regional. He informed me that I was being kicked out of the Guard. I was devastated. I always had great respect for the director, and he was always encouraging and supportive. He would always try to build me up and encourage me to look forward to successes beyond Guard. Everyone else eventually saw through the lies the two men created. The extent of their psychological abuse and their predatory behavior towards young boys is truly disturbing. I eventually moved to Miami in 2002 and had an incredible time marching with the Alliance in Miami. I started to teach in Florida and taught a few dozen high school guards over the 10 years that I lived there. In 2011, I moved back to Boston after I got my bachelor's degree in culinary arts and my bachelor's degree in hospitality management. I wrote my old guard director telling him about my accomplishments, as he was very nice, and he was very nice with an email the next day that said the letter was the best gift he got because he always knew I could be successful. That was one thing that killed me the most, is that director of the color guard, a lot of people are all about the win or all about this. He took me out to dinner and sat me down and said, when are you going to start getting into college? When are you, do you want me to talk to somebody at Mount Ida? I know somebody at Mount Ida that I could get you in. And my self-esteem and everything was so low because of all the things my parents would say to me growing up that I never thought I would even be able to handle college. So having him throw me out of the Guard stung extremely bad because I really looked up to him, and I know that he was being manipulated as well. All right. I was still in a messed up head move. I was still up in a messed up head mode due to the sexual and mental abuse I suffered to those men. I was invited to the guard director's 50th birthday party, and I knew those two instructors would be there, and I feared being anywhere near them. I have been asked to teach guards in Nesba, but the thought of having to be judged by a child molester horrifies me. I can't imagine having to speak face-to-face during critique with a man who drugged and abused me in the worst ways and who used to actively prey on other young boys. He is the sole reason I was not able to attend a show in Massachusetts since 2000. Other staff members have recently told me they had their suspicions and that they quit teaching because of it. Staff members on that color guard, on that program that were amazing, quit because they could not deal with these two men allowing young boys to live with them. That's sad. That tells you a lot right there. I couldn't tell anyone when it was happening due to the fear, shame, pain, and embarrassment. I only recently opened up to one of them about my abuse, and them confirming their suspicions. I am just writing this to you now brings back a flood of all those awful emotions. This should never happen. I was just a kid who was supposed to be under the care and responsibility of adults. After 7 years of seeing a therapist, I still have this fear and shame in me and the sexual abuse I was put through. I shouldn't be 37 years old and afraid to go to a New England Scholastic Band Association show because I might run into one of them. I should be able to be comfortable and be part of an activity that I was involved in my entire life, but I can't. With time comes courage, and now I have the courage to bring this up and inform the New England Scholastic Band Association and anyone who will listen of these two men's actions. The purpose of this letter is to demand that the board take into account the illegal, horrific, and unethical accounts of sexual assault perpetrated by both these instructors and remove them from ever holding any position in the New England Scholastic Band Association, and having them do anything with minor children, as I know I am not alone on this. There are more victims out there of these two men, and in time, and with the recent attention exposed to the predators in this activity, may decide to come forward. I have been in contact with the woman who broke the story on George Hopkins, and continue to report, and she continues to report on the cadet sexual abuse issues, and I will condemn the vile actions of these men through every resource available to me. I look forward to hearing back to you on these major issues. Thank you for your time. I sent this letter to the Board of Nesba on May 5th. I wrote it, I erased it, I wrote it, I erased it, I wrote it. Now, I'm going to read you the 2 emails that I received from their attorney, and you can see how they blatantly contradict one another. Dear Mr. Gramazio, please be advised that my office has been retained by the Board of Directors of Nesba with regard to the above referenced matter. The board reviewed your email on May 5th and circulated it to the full executive board over the weekend. Once all executive board members acknowledged receipt, they held an emergency conference call to discuss the matter. The board is extremely concerned over the content of your emails and take this matter very seriously. Based upon the content of your email and allegations containing therein, the board feels compelled to report these allegations to the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. Please see attached copy of the notice sent to the Suffolk County District Attorney. Please be further advised that the Board of Nesba has suspended both individuals until a complete investigation is concluded in this matter. In the interim, the board will be willing to work with my office to answer any questions or concerns you may have about to assure your privacy and confidentiality will be protected at best. The board wishes you the best going forward in this matter. That all sounds good. That all sounds good to me. They're going to investigate it. They put them on suspension. They're taking it seriously. I had not known that the president of the board was one of my old drum corps instructors who is now a drum corps director. I didn't know that this issue was going to land on his lap, so I sent him a message apologizing. He said, "Don't worry about it. You have no reason to apologize. We're taking care of it right now." The very next day, I was blocked from him. He took me off his Facebook. All the judges that I've known in Nesba had taken me off their Facebook and blocked me, and I've been told by several people that they were told not to speak to me, not to talk to me, not to associate with me. Now, if you want to say don't talk about this situation, that's one thing, but when you say don't associate with somebody, you're hiding something, and I think it's disgusting, and I think that that just lit a fuel under me even more. And when I read the response from the attorney that they sent to the district attorney, you'll understand why my aggravation is even worse. Dear District Attorney Conley, please be advised that my office represents the New England Scholastic Band Association. Nesba is the governing board for the Drum and Bugle Corps competitions across the country. Now, I have never known Nesba to be any part of Drum Corps International. I've spoken with several WGI judges, and they have all said the same thing. We do not use DCI judges in Nesba. There are guard instructors that do both, but I've never known either of these instructors to judge or teach drum corps. The last I know of is 1998. One of them taught at a local small drum corps here in Massachusetts, and that's it. On May 6, 2018, the board received a very disturbing email from an individual, namely John Gramazzi, who is active in Drum and Bugle Corps from 93 to present. Again, Drum and Bugle Corps says nothing about Winterguard. Mr. Gramazzio's email contains serious allegations of sexual abuse approximately 30 years ago. It was 20 years ago. For your review and files, please find enclosed copy of said email. Here's the part that really gets me. While the two alleged perpetrators do not work directly for Nesba, they are still active judges in drum and bugle corps competitions. Out of sense of obligation, the board of Nesba felt compelled to bring your attention to these allegations. Should you need further information or have any questions concerning this matter, please do not hesitate to contact my office. Now, Nesba Finals, Winterguard, Indoor Nesba, New England Scholastic Band Association, and Drum Corps International have no ties. As far as I know, as far as everybody has told me, yes, some people could judge both. But as far as I've been told, neither of these men judge both. One judges Nesba and one teaches a local color guard for a high school. So I don't understand why Drum Corps keeps being brought up in it when the Eastern Mass Drum and Bugle Corps Association and the Eastern Mass Winterguard Association, went inactive in 2003. That's 15 years ago since there has been a Massachusetts Drum and Bugle Corps besides the infamous Boston Crusaders. And Boston Crusaders is an incredible drum corps, and I loved my experience there. To say that these people are judging drum corps competitions is a lie. One of these people judged Nesba Finals. So I don't understand why they're contradicting themselves, why they wrote me one letter and wrote another letter to the district attorney. But here's my first response. On May 10th, I responded back. Mr. Cairns, I'm curious as to how you're going about this investigation. No other member I've marched with have been contacted. None of my old staff members have been contacted. I have several people who will be sending the district attorney, WGI, the Nesba board, and yourself letters of their own accounts of what they saw and witnessed going on with these two men. Sexual abuse was not the only abuse. Two male instructors in the guard provided tons of drugs and alcohol to the members while marching. It was but for me, I was never into drugs or anything like that. My main issue, of course, like I said, people have their own stories. My main issue was the sexual abuse. Also, as a family member of the board, isn't it a conflict of interest for you to be working on this case? It turns out that Michael Cairns is the son of somebody who has been on the board of directors for 30 years. To me, I find it compelling that this guy has been there for 30 years plus, or his mom has been there for 30 years plus. I don't know how long he's been. But it confuses me on how somebody who's had 30 years of experience with it doesn't know the difference between New England Scholastic Band Association, which is high school, and then DCI, which is drum corps, independent, nothing to do with high school. I'm not saying anything about drum corps. I didn't have any bad experiences in drum corps. They were all wonderful, and I can't say a bad thing about it. Drum corps was awesome. Did things happen to other people? Sure. Was it my story to tell? No, and I'm not going to tell it. Did I hear back from him? No. So I sent another letter this morning. Dear Michael Cairns, I'm confused as to the differences in the email you sent to me and the email you sent to the DA. You told the DA that the perpetrators do not work for Nesba, but they do judge Drum and Bugle Corps. Attached, you will see that Instructor 1 judged the Nesba Championships on 3/31/2018, and I sent a screenshot of the judging panel at Nesba Finals from March 31st, 2018. So to say that they're not affiliated with it or they're part of Drum Corps, this guy was in Nesba around young boys and judging them. How can you confuse that? It makes no sense. Also, there is no more Drum and Bugle Corps Association in Massachusetts, nor has there been an association since 2003. So neither have been judging Drum and Bugle Corps since 2003 and prior, if at all. I have never heard of either of them judging Drum Corps. However, they may have in the 80s. Instructor 1 is a current judge in Nesba, and as far as the other instructor goes, I last heard he was teaching a local high school with Winterguard, and he was a history teacher. You told me you suspended these two men while there is a pending investigation going on. Why would you not tell the DA that? To say Instructor 1 is a judge for DCI when he is a judge for Nesba is a false statement. So why the attorney is lying to the DA is beyond me. May I also ask what steps are being taken to investigate this situation? A simple suspension is not the solution here. These two men should not be around young students. I have a number of supporters who will be writing letters along with staff members, WGI judges, and all of the above. As far as this quote-unquote investigation goes, not one of my former staff members have been contacted, guard members have not been contacted, and I have not been contacted. All that has been done is the Nesba judges have been told, the Nesba judges have been told and have passed on the information to me that they were to ignore it as it was just drama and it will go away. However, I will not be silenced anymore. It's been 22 years. To sweep this under the rug is not the right thing to do. It's not the right approach, and I can assure you that I will do everything in my power to expose these two men for what they really are. They are far from being the only two in the activity that are predators to young boys or girls in the activity, but those are other stories, people's stories to tell when they are ready. This is my story, and it's weighed me down for 22 years. It's time for a change. So that's my story. With all this Me Too movement, I started a Twitter account. MenToo Victims is the name. Hashtag MenToo Victims at MenToo Victims. And I'm also going to create a YouTube page where people, if they feel brave enough, they can show their face, or if they don't feel brave enough, they could just speak and explain their stories and their experiences, because just as much as sexual harassment happens to women, it happens to men, and especially young boys within this activity. And I'm not going to let it get swept under the rug. So you're not going to silence me. You're not going to just brush this under the rug. This isn't drama. This isn't something you can just ignore. This is something that I will fight. It really has me go back and think. And I've been thinking a lot about things that happened throughout the years. And the way certain staff members acted throughout the years. 1998, I went to a drum corps camp along with two other boys. I will say that those two other boys have their experiences. They have their reasons. I won't mention their names. I do know one of the boys explained to me his experience, and he was able, like the other boy, that both marched my Winterguard as well, they were able to leave the drum corps at the end of the Winterguard season and go march Blue Devils. I, however, was not allowed to leave the drum corps. They said that I was already locked in for the season and they would not give me a release. And I sat there and asked myself, why were the other two allowed, but I wasn't? And now I look back and think to myself, I remember why. I remember the stories that these people had told me and what had happened, and now I understand. They couldn't keep them back because they knew they probably would have outed them at the time. And that infuriates me more than anything. I went from medalist open class color guard going into World to starring in Alliance of Miami show in 2002. And I had to sit there in 1998 and be told that I had to sit there and continue to do flourishes and triples while boys that I had marched with that have only been marching color guard for a year were off marching Blue Devils when I wanted to do that as well. Also, the two the two instructors that had sexually assaulted me, abused me, raped me. One raped, the other I consider just vile assault and indecency. Those people gave them a good name and got them in there as their director of the director designer Jay Murphy of Blue Devils wrote our show in 1998. So everybody went to march Blue Devils. Why wasn't I allowed? I was not given a release, but everybody else was. Why? My dues were paid off. I went to the same camps. I didn't sign any paperwork. So you have to look at it in the way of what really happened, what really went down, and what's right and what's wrong. I will update more on this video. This video was extremely hard for me to do. Shaking a little here. The fact that I'm going to post this makes me shake a little more, but I know it's the right thing to do. I know that if anything, if I can get one young boy to not have to go through what I went through, then that's enough for me. But I think WGI and Nesba need to open their eyes and see what's around them and stop sweeping it under the rug. Because there are dozens of men in that activity who have been doing this for decades and it's swept under the rug. And time's up. Time's up. Because, I'm not going to close my mouth about it. You can try to silence me. You can ignore everything you want. I have my attorney. We're ready to go. And my goal would be, people asked what my goal would be, what I want out of this. I don't want money. I don't want a penny. I don't want one single penny. I want these two gentlemen to have to register as sex offenders, and whatever the legal system decides to do with them is what they decide. I want them to be charged as sex offenders. I want them to be on the sex offender registry. They deserve to be. When you rape a 15-year-old child who's vulnerable, who's naive, who has a bad home life, you went after them. You prayed. They were your pride. You went after them purposely. And it's disgusting. And I hope that any boy out there, whether you're my age or you're marching now or you're younger, be careful. Don't stay at a staff member's house. Your communication with a color guard instructor should be either in person at rehearsal or via email or a Facebook page or an email chat that you guys have. There shouldn't be any instructors, high school guard instructors, texting members of the color guard, young boys of the color guard in the middle of the night, all those types of things. It needs to stop because there's so many other things going on in this world right now, and it's horrible that I started the Stoneman Project and I haven't even finished sending out all the wristbands, and there's been another high school shooting. And it's horrible. It's just horrible. It's horrible. And it needs to stop. It needs to stop. You know, time is up. It's over. I will do what I need to do. If Nesba doesn't want to take this seriously, Nesba doesn't want to take it seriously. As you heard from the two letters, you could see how they contradicted one another. They never told the DA they were investigating these men. They never told them that they judged Nesba finals and were in the gym with young boys a couple weeks prior to that letter. To say that they do judge Drum and Bugle Corps is a lie. And I find it pretty repulsive that men would get around in a group of table, men and women would get around a group of table or a conference call and sit there and say, how can we sweep this under the rug so nothing bad happens? Instead of that, why aren't you thinking, what can we do to make sure this isn't happening to children? Why aren't you sitting there saying, what can we do to make sure that these young students who want to be educated and want to be a part of this activity are safe? Why aren't you doing anything? What you did is you took my letter that took me 22 years to write, you brushed it under a rug, you told me on Facebook and email, don't worry about it, we're taking care of it, and the next thing I know, bam, I'm blocked. And not blocked from just one person, every single one that's on that board has taken me off and blocked me. And now I understand, okay, it shouldn't be discussed, but that's no reason to block and ignore me. Also, I think it's a huge conflict of interest that they're using a board member's son as their attorney for a situation like this. They should go through somebody else. And they need to take this seriously because I'm taking it dead seriously, and I will make sure that these men get what they deserve. And I hope that everybody else out there, if you're going through this, reach out to me. I will keep any information you give to me private one-on-one. I'll give you the advice I have, the advice that's been given to me, and I hope that, that these sick men get what they deserve, get what's coming to them, and anybody else in the activity, we can start wiping out these scumbags that are doing this to young boys and young girls in Winterguard, Nesba, Marching Band, and Drum and Bugle Corps. And we could start fresh and get back to protecting kids, because that's what it's about. You've stolen my innocence. You've stolen the innocence of thousands of kids throughout the years, and it needs to stop. So whatever I need to do to make sure that it is no longer happening, I'll make sure I do. That's all for my video for now. That's my story. That's where I'm going to leave it at. And you can find me on Twitter, MenToo Victims, MENTOO VICTIMS, and share your story with me. Thank you.